Welcome to Instant Deck Techs. The aim of this series is to give you a short, concise guide on how to build a certain deck. It won't cover every card, but we'll go through all the categories and go over the types of cards needed to make the deck work. Any card mentioned will be down in the description below. The commanders of this deck are Sakashima of 1,000 Faces and Tormod the Desecrator, with Gyruda, Doom of Depths as a companion. This is going to be a Reanimator deck with a clone and flicker sub-theme. Gyruda will be a companion, so first up, every card in the deck will need to have an even mana cost. We'll go over some good ways of mitigating this throughout the video, but keep an eye out for mana sinks and activated abilities on cards that we're playing. People play big dumb effects in Commander, this deck included. We'll use Gyruda to cheat in to play the best cards from our and our opponent's decks. Sakashima can come in as a clone of Gyruda to do it all over again, while also allowing our other clones to pile in on the action. We also have the backup plan with Sakashima of cloning one of the big threats we've cheated in as well. And don't think Tormod is just here making up the numbers, getting a bonus zombie every time we reanimate a spell will add up very quickly. These three combine to make a really powerful Reanimator combination, and having access to 3 additional cards at the start of the game is nothing to be sniffed at. First up is our ramp. We will want a pretty decent amount of it, as the deck will most likely have a large chunk of spells that cost 4 and 6 mana, so running more means you'll be more likely to double spell later in the game. First up is ramp that costs 0 mana. I put the more budget friendly ones on screen here, as they are very solid includes and great early game plays, but if you have the more expensive ones, then they are definitely something to consider. Moving on to the bread and butter of the ramp section, and that is mana rocks that cost 2. This is where I'd want the largest chunk of my ramp to be, as cheap as possible so we can push our game plan ahead. Still in the 2 mana section, we have some dorks that tap for mana. Depending on how many creatures you're running at the low end of the curve, these could be nice inclusions if your playgroup is particularly aggressive, as they can block while ramping us ahead. Because of the big things we have in this deck, we can also run some bigger rocks. These have a place as they'll help us hard cast some of the bigger things that we're trying to cheat in with Gyruda. While technically these count as fixing rather than ramp, we can also run some creatures with land cycling. Making sure we hit our land drops will be very important in this deck, and these help with that while giving us some additional targets to hit off of Gyruda. One last card to mention is Helm of Awakening. Like with all symmetrical effects played in Commander, we're only playing it as our deck can make the most use out of it. Specifically making our 4 drops cost 3 just makes them so much easier to cast. Again, I think this card's inclusion depends on your meta and what you're expecting to play against. If your meta's planning on comboing off as quickly as possible, then probably leave it out. Moving over to our card draw, Dimir has a lot of good options to choose from, so we shouldn't have issues getting to the 8 to 10 bits we need to make the deck function. First up is creatures that draw a card when they enter the battlefield. These would be great includes that keep us digging through our deck, all while being useful bodies to hold down the fort until the bigger things come down later. After that is some other creatures that can help us draw cards. As we said, there's plenty of options in these colours, so run the best ones that you have available to you. Personally, I like the looting effects in this kind of deck, as we'll have other reanimation spells that we can use to get good value out of the things that we discard. Then there are some solid instants and sorceries that draw us cards. There's a good selection on screen here, with notable picks being things like Talarian Winds, if you really want to go ham with the additional reanimation effects, Deep Analysis as a card that we can additionally play from our graveyard, or cards with cycling like Hieroglyphic Illumination and Boon of the Wishgiver, as we can cycle them away if we have spare mana. Moving on to that recursion package, we'll definitely want some extra bits to help Gyruda out. Importantly, these can also get Gyruda back from the graveyard, as remember, it's just a companion and not a commander in the deck. There's plenty of effects out there, so run the ones that suit your budget best. Personally, I'd look for ones that are as cheap as possible, or have alternative casting costs like Dread Return. Moving over to our interaction, we have plenty of options to kill things. Firstly, a nice card to mention is Extinction Event, as we can pick odd and know we're never going to be hitting any of the cards in our deck. After that, we have a wide selection of the best targeted removal out there. Personally, I like Infernal Grasp as it can hit any creature going, and then we also have Feed the Swarm as importantly it can hit enchantments, which is something these colours normally don't get. In terms of board wipes, we have a good selection available to us, with Flood of Tears being a standout as it can re-trigger Gyruda when it's bounced or treat something else huge into play from our hand. As we're in blue, we also have access to some counter magic. This can be very nice as it can double up at protecting our board, so are nice includes as well. We then move over to creatures that can kill things. These have additional value as they're good targets to hit off of Gyruda, all while answering our opponent's threats. Next up we have our doubling effects. The aim of this section is to add another big dumb threat to our board. There's ETB effects all throughout the deck, and this section will really help tie them all together nicely. First up we have clone effects. These can either come in as a copy of something we've cheated in with Gyruda, or if we have Sakashima out, they can copy Gyruda itself to repeat its enter the battlefield trigger, and potentially get something even bigger. Next up is blink effects, as again, these will re-trigger Gyruda, or another impactful ETB effect from a different creature, meaning that we will get that effect again. Obviously, when we're talking about big enter the battlefield effects, we have to talk about Panharmonicon. Doubling all these up will be really strong, and is a must kill for our opponents, otherwise we'll run away with the game. We've already gone over some of the large things we want to cheat into play in some of the other sections of the video, but obviously we want to run more. This is where you can pick your favourite biggest things and go to town with them. What's great about this build is that with Sakashima as one of our commanders, we don't have to worry too much about the legend rule with our clones, so we can run some big dumb legendary creatures as well. So those big things are a very solid way of winning the game, but let's talk about some more dedicated WINCONs. For the combo-loving degenerate amongst you, you can look to running Tainted Pack to mill out your whole library, and then win with something like Thassa's Oracle or Jace Wielder of Mysteries. This does come with the additional caveat that you can only have one of each named card in your deck, which does include basic land, and while it might not be for everyone, it is a very solid way of winning a game in a more competitive meta. Next up is top of the library effects. These might not look like win conditions, but these are the special sauce to push the deck to the next level. These add a good amount of consistency to the deck, meaning that we have better control of what we can cheat into play. Being able to get the perfect answer exactly when you need it can be the difference between winning and losing in Commander. And last up for WINCONs is Wonder. Remember that Gyruda is a 6/6, and a load of our threats will get better by having flying. Wonder is a great way of giving our whole team evasion and make that lethal swing all the easier. Rounding off the deck with some utility lands, there's a good selection available to us on top of those we've already mentioned. If you have them, then Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth and Cabal Coffers is a classic combination for a black deck to make a ton of extra mana. We do also have some more budget-friendly options. Bojuka Bog is great at answering opposing graveyard decks. Mystic Sanctuary can bring some important spells back from the graveyard. Command Beacon is really useful in case Sakashima gets too pricey to recast. And then Gaia Reach Sanitarium is a loot effect that can also make us mana, which is perfect for the deck. The rest of your mana base will be very dependent on what you have available to you. We've recently released a video with some advice on building a deck with a budget mana base, which might be of help. Until next time, please like, share and subscribe, and let us know down in the comments if there are any commanders you'd like to see a deck tech on. Thank you very much for watching.